Hey guys, Christopher in here, and I've got a new figure review that I'm going to do. I have all four of the new female Ghostbusters figures for the reboot Ghostbusters movie that comes out in July. These come in a nice resealable packaging, which from Mattel, that's quite a change. They usually have like blister packaging, which doesn't work so well for resealing. They've got a slime deco with a rather large No Ghost logo here in the corner. Uh, Ghostbusters, the character's name. Each figure comes with a piece to build a Rowan figure. Rowan looks like he's going to be the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man of the new movie. Likely a manifestation of whatever the main villain is. On the back, you can get a look at what Rowan's going to look like, as well as a shot of all four of the characters. Little, kind of splash art here with some caution logos and whatnot in the background. I don't know if that's showing up very well in camera. And you got the caution stripe as well as the uniform stripes, which is kind of neat. But I'm going to go ahead and get these open and we'll do a review. I'm also going to do a comparison with the regular Mattel Ghostbusters figures, do a side by side of them. These are not the re-releases that Mattel put out in Walmart's. I haven't been able to find those yet. This is actually one of the original releases. So I will get these out of the package and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, and I'm back. I went ahead and removed the packs from the Busters to make them a little bit easier to pose, to show off the posability a little bit better. But that is a good point, they are removable. The straps are just this really flexible, like rubbery material, probably a vinyl of some sort. And you just basically point the arms back and the straps slide right off the figure. Takes a little bit of working them off to get them out of the packs, but they come out alright. For the most part, the posability is the same across all the figures. There are a few slight differences, primarily with Jillian Holtzman over here. She has slightly less articulation than the other figures, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. But I'll go ahead and, grab Gilbert and Holtzman here, and I'll show you the articulation. Now, they have waist swivel, which is pretty standard for Mattel figures. Arms hinge up and down. Elbows bend about 90 degrees, a little bit over possibly. They've got a swivel at the elbow, and then most of the Ghostbusters have a swivel at, like, I guess the mid-arm slash wrist. Holtzman, however, does not have this articulation. All she has is the elbow swivel. I'm not sure why they did that. Might have been hard to do with that plastic. Maybe the plastic was too soft to put that joint in there, but for whatever reason they made that decision and it doesn't articulate there. Legs can move forward about not much, pretty much just short of straight out. Elbow bend is about 90 degrees, or not elbow, knee bend about 90 degrees. It's got a thigh swivel. No boot cut on these. The original Ghostbusters figures have a boot cut, which I'll show here in a minute. Ankle points up and down. No swivel there at the ankle, and then a slight ankle pivot not much, but a little bit. The heads are on a ball joint, as all the Mattel figures seem to be, but for the most part, that doesn't get you any extra articulation on these. The way that the original Ghostbusters figures were designed, and I imagine these are very similar, is that you have the peg coming out of the body and then the ball at the top, which means there's not a lot of range to move it. It makes a cleaner seam for the most part because the neck actually goes into the body and you don't have like a cut at the jawline or anything like that. But it does hinder the articulation even with the ball joint being there. Uh, you can get the heads will rotate. They won't rotate quite 360 unless you really force it because the height of the collar interferes with the chin as you're turning it. Overall, the paint applications on mine are really good. I spent a little bit of time looking for better paint applications. One of the big ones to look out for is on Melissa McCarthy's character, Abby Yates, where oftentimes her eyes are painted pointing different directions, or derpy as it's often referred to. I'm not sure if I can get it to focus here. Let's see. Yeah. Her eyes are pretty decent on this one. So I was lucky in that regard. I was able to find one at my Toys R Us that had a pretty good paint application on those. Also, can I add that I'm very impressed with the clarity of the glasses. A lot of times, glasses at this scale, they come out very distorted, and these are actually very clear, which I was impressed by. Holtzman's goggles aren't, I think they're safety goggles. They're not as clear, but they are decently clear as well. It's probably due to the dye that they use for the coloration, but they came out a little bit more foggy than the Yates glasses. Logos are applied really cleanly. It's probably just a probably a transfer of some sort, but pretty decent application. Same with the name tag appliques. But overall, these are really decent figures. I do have some slight issues with the legs in particular on these. They stand up just fine, which, if you saw my Diamond Select reviews, that's something that it's not always the case. Some weird paint smudge it looks like there. I might have to see if I can get that off with some paint thinner or something. The upper thigh joint here, which I actually didn't point out, is an articulation. They swing out to the side. Seems to be molded in a slightly softer plastic than they were on the original Ghostbusters figures. I don't have the Classics versions that are being released at Walmart right now, so I don't know if that's a change that's made across the retail versions. But if you notice, when you close the leg joint, it starts flexing up there at the thigh. On some of them, it's a little bit worse than others. Yeah, you can see it flexing quite a bit there. And I'm afraid that over time that may put stress on the hip joints and end up breaking the legs off. Another issue for me is that the top of the leg, the upper thigh, is molded in a harder plastic than the lower leg, and the colors don't quite match up. I'm not sure if that's showing up on camera, but it is there. And then when you get to the top of the boot here, because the boot's black, they molded the area below the knee in the black plastic and then painted it. And as a result, it doesn't have very great coverage. whatever paint that they used. So the color is noticeably darker than the color above the knee. And it's just weird to have 3 different, colors of khaki going up the leg. It's an odd decision. But if I pull in one of the original Ghostbusters figures, let's grab Bill Murray here, Peter Venkman. There he is. Sorry about the angle, it's kind of a small space I'm working in here. Most of the articulation is the same. The heads on these do get a little bit more of a range of movement. The ball joints actually do allow them to kind of swivel a bit more. They also have the waist articulation. The elbows on the new figures are better, though. On these older ones, they can't quite go 90 degrees, and then they can't quite straighten out. They're kind of molded with a almost perpetual bend at the elbow. And I do like the fact that these sit at a bit more of a natural pose when they're articulated. This thrower just came off. Actually, let me grab one of the other ones, because this one doesn't have the boot cut. Grab Egon here. The original Ghostbusters, with the exception of Peter because of his, not tucking in his pants legs, have a boot cut at the top of the boot, as well as the thigh cut. So they have a little bit more articulation in that regard. The original ones also have these hinges at the wrists, which the new Busters don't. I'm not sure why they made that decision. Maybe the smaller stature of the characters led to more limited articulation. I don't know. That's probably a decision-making process that Mattel had to go through, what they could do while keeping the quality of the figure at the same time, making it look like what it's supposed to. One of the things about the original Ghostbusters figures is that the throwers were molded in this rubbery plastic, but the hoses were kind of stiff. And this led to breakage, as you can see here with my Venkman figure. It's a fairly easy fix if you want to get like a small drill bit. I just haven't bothered yet. But I'll probably replace it with like a string or something just to make it where I don't have to worry about it again. But the new Busters have something that I'm a little bit concerned about as well. On the new Busters packs, which are actually pretty nicely detailed, they're a little flat with the exception of the kind of toolbox here and the the synchrotron on top. Everything else is a little bit flat compared to what we see in the actual prop. Probably for easier molding, if I had to guess. But if you look at the thrower cord, it's molded in a very specific shape. Now the shape allows it to kind of bend around the character figure to get into the arms very easily, but I'm afraid that since it feels like a slightly harder plastic than the original Ghostbusters figures, that this might break over time. Now, the fact that it kind of flows naturally might keep it from putting that stress on there, but it is a concern. Fortunately, with the way that it's attached to the pack, as opposed to it being molded in, it's sort of pegged in and sandwiched. It might be more easily replaceable, but only time will tell on that. Just the thrower just pegs onto the pack there as well. It's pretty simple, basically the same way that the original ones were designed. It'd be nice if some other companies would figure that out. The pack's just a hard plastic, hollow cast shell, which works pretty well. For the most part, you can't see behind the figures to see that it's this hollow hard plastic, so it's effective in replicating the look of the pack. I did find the thrower to be a little bit oddly molded, although I guess that's just how they hold it in the movie, where the original one would have the finger portions of the grip over here on the front. This one's on the side, the opposite direction, but I guess they hold it differently in the film, which would lead to that change. So, overall, I actually really like these figures. Let me refocus my camera here. There we go. Yeah, overall, I really like these figures. The likenesses are pretty good, with the exception, I'd say, of Melissa McCarthy's character. I don't know if they couldn't get the rights for her likeness, or if they couldn't get her over there to be scanned, or whatever process they use to make these figures. I know a lot of companies use like a scanning process, or if the person that sculpted it just isn't as good as the person that sculpted the other three figures. But it is the only one that kind of stands out as not really looking like the character as well. All the other ones seem pretty well captured. I like the fact that all four of them have their own individual bodies. They're not all on the same, the same action figure body, the same generic one. It allows them to do some, character specific, differences, like how Holtzman has her sleeves rolled up all the way, and Yates has hers down. Tolan has hers rolled up to about the elbow, and then Gilbert has hers rolled up just past the wrists. Just little character specific things like that, sort of like how they gave Venkman the untucked pant legs, while all the other Ghostbusters have theirs tucked in. But these are definitely worth picking up if you can find them. Decent amount of posability, pretty good detailing. I would recommend shopping around a little bit to try and find ones with better paint applications in the eyes in particular. I wouldn't recommend buying them online due to that, not being an option. But overall, definitely worth picking up. And the other thing that they come with, which I actually forgot to mention so far, is they come with a Build-A-Figure. This is Rowan, who looks to be the Stay Puft equivalent in the reboot. And in the most recent trailer, you can kind of see him bursting out of a giant building in New York, and should be interesting to see. I kind of wish he was a little bit bigger. He's basically right in the same size range as the girls here. A little bit shorter, in fact, especially compared to Patty there. But he doesn't have much in the way of articulation. Arm moves, like the arms move up and down. There is a cut at the wrists, but mine seems like it's stuck. I don't want to try and force that because I'm afraid I might break the wrists off if I do. It feels that way on both of them, but they do both articulate up and down. The hips on him do not articulate at all. They're just the plug-in for the piece, and then the ankles do swivel back and forth. Head gets full 360 rotation. No up and down movement, no rocking really, but it's a nicely detailed figure. The paint applications are pretty clean on it. The bow tie is a little bit unpainted around the edges, but the looking at it front on, it looks pretty good. And if you just want to maybe pretend like he's like a mascot for the company, which I guess is possible for what he is in the movie. I don't know, but he could be like somebody in a mascot costume, for a commercial or something, but he doesn't really look super intimidating because he's right in the same size scale as they are. But I'm hoping they release a bigger version of this guy eventually to maybe make a bigger ghost for them to fight. But it's a pretty cool figure. I would probably recommend getting the more articulated one that's sold as an individual figure. I kind of don't see the point of them releasing that figure. I think that they could have done better just making that figure the Build-A-Figure and scrapping this one altogether, but it's not a terrible bonus. I kind of wish we hadn't gotten him though, and had instead gotten accessories for the busters themselves, like PKE meters, traps, goggles, that sort of thing. But overall, it's a nice addition. And if you want to pick up the busters themselves as it is, it's a nice bonus. But yeah, if you're a fan of Ghostbusters, if you're at all looking forward to the new movie, I would recommend picking them up. The characters in the film seem like they're going to be pretty entertaining on their own, so having nice figures that represent them pretty well will be pretty cool. Sort of like the original ones, having figures that represent the characters. It's kind of cool to have after all these years. So it's kind of cool to see a Ghostbusters figure line released alongside of an actual film. But that's all I've got to really say about these. They're really nice figures. Mattel, once again, did a really good job of making, decently detailed action figures that, pose really well and look enough like the characters that, they're definitely recognizable. And I'm hoping that the movie is good. I may do a review of the movie once I see it. I know my Ghostbusters crew and I will be at a theater promoting the movie when it comes out. So if you're in the Franklin, Tennessee area, you can come check us out at Cool Springs the weekend the movie comes out. We'll be there pretty much all weekend promoting it. But I guess I'm gonna cut this review here. But if you guys see these at your local stores and you're at all interested, I'd highly recommend getting them. I need to get a couple of the other ghosts and bad guys and whatnot that they've released as well to go with them. But overall, very nice figures. Definitely a recommend. All right. I will probably be back in the next couple of days with, if not sooner than that, with reviews of the second wave of Diamond Select Ghostbusters figures, which include Peter Venkman, Egon Spengler, and Dana Barrett as Zool. And I guess I will see you guys then. All right. Bye.